Hey guys, in this video we're going to be doing a target for 8.3. Our mastery learning objective is I can interpret a table to identify the max height, initial height, distance traveled, and duration of time by using key features of real-world parabolic functions. So, still dealing with parabolas here, similar to our last video, except for we don't have a graph, we have a table. But overall, everything else is the same exact thing. So our first example says the following table models the depth of a submarine, and here's our function. H of t equals t squared minus 4t, where t is time and h is the height. So that's kind of something nice to keep in mind. Our t represented the time, and our h represents the height. Looking at the first example, does the function have a max or a min value? So looking at this, dealing with our table, we have to find what our vertex is first. So what we kind of see here is that looking at just the y values, from 0 to negative 3, this is going down, right? Negative 3 to negative 4, that's still going down. But now from negative 4 to negative 3, that's going back up. And from negative 3 to 0, that's going back up, right? So if our parabola was going down first, then switches to going up, that's going to give us our lowest point, right? So it is going to be a minimum, but at what value does that happen? Well, that's going to happen right here where we see that switch of going up to going down. Also, remember when we talked about that pattern, where we see that pattern kind of overlapping each other, right? We see that negative 3, we see that 0, 0, making that negative 4 our center. So our maximum here is just going to be that, right? That 2, negative 4, and it is a minimum. Interpret the meaning. Well, if our t represents time and our y represents the height, what we have to say then, at 2 seconds, the submarine is at a minimum depth of negative 4 miles. So something that wasn't in this problem was telling us that our unit of time is in seconds and our unit of height is in miles. So that should be given to you. And those are the things that you need to make sure you have in your explanation. You have to have units. We have the 2 seconds. We have the 4 miles. And also that it is a minimum, right? You have to talk about that is the lowest point. The next thing says to identify the t-intercepts. So t-intercept is going to be whenever t-intercept is whenever h is equal to 0. Right? Well, where does h equal to 0? I see 1 point right here. So that's going to be at 0, 0. This is also our start. And then the other point where I see h is equal to 0 is this point right here of 0, negative, or 4, 0. So this is going to be our stopping point. So interpret the meaning. What does this mean? Well, if we're starting at 0, our height is what? Well, 0. So at 0 seconds, the submarine begins its dive. Or you can say it has a height of 0, right? Because that's 0, 0. But what happens when it's 4 seconds? So at 4 seconds, right? Think about this being our parabola right here. Right? If it starts its descent, starts to go down, it eventually has to come back up to give us that other x-intercept. So at 4 seconds, the submarine returns to the surface. Alright? Identify the H-intercept. H-intercept is whenever t is equal to 0. So looking back, so this is whenever t is equal to 0. Remember, it's the opposite. And where does t equal 0? Well, again, at 0, 0. And then does t equal 0 any other point? Nope. So that is our only point. So interpret the meaning. Well, the initial height then of the submarine is 0 miles. H represents height, time, when is time 0. So when time is equal to 0, the initial height of the submarine is 0 miles. Right? And to think about what this would look like as a graph, well, this is my y-axis. The height, wherever it's crossing, is starting there at that 0. So wherever it's going down. Where it starts, it's descent. Alright, example number 2. Same idea as here. Oop, my apologies. Alright, so example number 2. The following table models the height of a baseball. By that parabola is our quadratic. Negative 2t squared plus 8t plus 6. Again, you don't need to put that in your graphing calculator. Just use the table that's given to you. Again, our t represents time. We're going to say that this is in seconds again. And that we're going to say our height is in feet. So, does the function have a max or min value? Again, looking at our patterns of where this is going up and where it's going down. So, start at the y value. 6 to 12, that's going up, right? 12 to 14, that's going up. 14 to 12, now all of a sudden this is going down. And then 12 to 6, that's going down. And then from 6 to 0, that's going down. So we see that switcheroo right here at this point. And again, if you were to find that pattern, we see that 12, 12, 6, 6, and then 0, 0, right? This is our pattern, which pattern shows that the parabola is going up first. So it is going up. Then it gets to some point, and now it starts switching, and it's going down. So that point right there is going to be a maximum. And at that point is going to be 2, 14. And this is a maximum. Alright, interpret what that means. Well, if t, this is t, and this is h, what we would say then is at 2 seconds, the baseball reaches a maximum height of 14 feet. Identify the t-intercept. So remember, t-intercept is whenever the opposite letter is a 0. So if I'm looking for t-intercept, this is whenever h is equal to 0. All right, where does h equal to 0? Right here at 5, 0. So this is going to be 5, 0. This is when, if we're thinking about starting and ending, if there's only one point, it's the stopping point. So we could write that here. If only one point, it's the stopping point. Alright, so this is going to be our stopping point. Interpret what that means. Well, the baseball then, if this is talking about our time, the baseball hits the ground at 5 seconds. The baseball hits the ground at 5 seconds. Alright, so if this was our x-axis here, oops. Probably more like this, right? This is wherever the ball hits the ground. Why? Because this was my h and my height was a 0. Interpret what the h-intercept is. So h-intercept is asking me whenever the t is equal to 0. So this is going to be whenever t is equal to 0. So time is equal to 0. The only point I see is this one right here of 0, 6. Right? Because that's the only place that my t is equal to a 0. And interpret what that means. Well, h is representing the height. So if this is my time, at time 0, the h, or my height, is 6. So time 0 is talking about the initial height. So the initial height of the baseball is 6 feet. So again, kind of like that little diagram that I drew. The initial height would be right there, right? However far up it's starting in the air. All right, that brings us actually to the end of activity 4, or video 4.8.3. You can work on that activity, and then there will be a short mini quiz on target A. All right, good luck.